Secrets whispered on the digital waves. See the living history on the screen. Old melodies igniting the spark. Transported photos full of stories.
Contrary to popular belief, Wings didn't end with Paul McCartney's arrest in Japan in January 1980. At that time, the band members were genuinely furious and frustrated at not earning the money for a tour they had rehearsed so hard for. The UK shows in December 1979 had been mere dress rehearsals for something they planned to tour around the world in 1980, repeating the global tour Paul had undertaken between 1975 and 1976. Denny Laine was the most disappointed by the McCartneys' blunder, arriving at Tokyo Airport carrying a bag full of weed. Paul was still in jail when Denny and the other members, Lawrence Huber and Steve Holley, returned to England along with the rest of the backing musicians and the tour crew. Desperate about the lack of money he never received, and to buy the house that it would have guaranteed him, he decided to make a new solo album. McCartney authorized Denny to use 3 of his tracks that Wings had recorded in the 1970s and never released on their albums, and Denny finished with some new tracks and dropped the bombshell, Japanese Tears, a strong reference to Japanese disappointment. Upon returning from prison after a few weeks, McCartney locked himself in his farm in Scotland and ended up making a one-off album with the demos he had recorded alone in the summer of 1979. Originally a double album, McCartney 2 featured the best demos for an album that Wings would certainly have recorded after the marijuana-fueled tour. Friends who had heard Paul's demos had been urging him to release them in that format, so he combined the good with the bad and released the LP. Coming up, the first single had already been played live by Wings, and a version recorded with the band in Glasgow occupied the B-side and even received better airplay on American radio. That summer 1980, a video for Coming Up featuring Paul playing virtually every role in a band. Linda played a few others, took the world by storm. Waterfalls followed at a time when Paul was already working on reuniting Wings. In the second half of 1980, with Coming Up having become a worldwide hit, McCartney and his band gathered in a studio to rehearse and record some demos, already thinking about the pre-production of the next album. But McCartney was also working, homeopathically as always, on a cartoon featuring the character Rupert, the rights to which he had acquired in the early 1970s when he launched his MPL. Paul had recorded a new demo with the song We All Stand Together and other gems, and had called on his old friend and producer George Martin to produce the recording. Martin, one of Paul's great friends, had already arranged and produced Live and Let Die for the 007 soundtrack, which had been commissioned to him by the series producers. The rest of the LP features Martin's orchestrations and can be considered his own album. We All Stand Together was recorded in late October 1980, and Paul subsequently asked Martin if he'd like to produce his new album. Martin was adamant. Only if I can actually produce it, with the autonomy to even choose good musicians to accompany you. McCartney handed him his demo, which included absurdities like Boyle Crisis, and went home to await his verdict. Sure enough, when McCartney began recording with Martin in November 1980, tracks that would comprise the LP's Tug of War, 82, and Pipes of Peace, 83, and a series of B-sides, only Denny Laine was able to participate. Denny was present in the studio on December 9th, when the repercussions of Lennon's death forced McCartney to delve even deeper into the work. At that point, Lawrence and Steve were still hoping to be called back for the sessions, but they knew everything was up in the air after the murder of their boss's former partner. After Christmas 1980, Paul and his family accompanied Martin and his family on the former producer's trip to the Caribbean for New Year's Eve and his birthday. McCartney then decided to continue recording at the ultra-modern air studios opened by Martin on the island of Montserrat, and illustrious guests such as Stevie Wonder, Ringo Starr, Carl Perkins, and bassist Stanley Clarke were scheduled to record between January and February of that new year, 81. That's when Steve and Lawrence realized that only Denny was in McCartney's plans, and only as a musician, since the album he was working on was a new solo album, continuing the new solo phase, which had begun incidentally with McCartney 2. The world already knew that Wings was over, by all appearances, but the two musicians were the second to last to find out. Because the last, as time proved, ended up being Denny Laine, who, after playing in those many sessions, ended his relationship with McCartney by participating in the recording of All Those Years Ago, which George Harrison had made in honor of Lennon, and which would feature drumming by Paul, Ringo, and George Martin, as well as Linda and Denny. The end of Wings was officially announced in late April 1981. Denny Laine remained silent for more than 2 years, but in late 1983, when the second half of Paul's solo album came out, he sold his story to a British tabloid, slamming his former boss and his team. Published in daily installments by the tabloid, Denny's story definitively alienated him from McCartney, although they reunited in the 1990s. But neither Denny nor the other Wings members participated in the 2000 Project Wingspan. Perhaps they all left McCartney's band feeling bored. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel.